I am very privileged to have my next guest, Debbie Thompson. Listen to this background: health and wellness coach, certified in functional diagnostic nutrition. She'll explain what that really is. She spent the last 20 years helping friends and family heal from their health challenges. Her current emphasis is on helping children. You help children by your own experiences, right? Your journey with ADHD and dyslexia. I have so many parents asking me, what can I do? What programs? Because you're approaching it from an academic standpoint. You have your own expertise that you'll share on how do we combat ADHD, or even embrace it so that they'll know as an adult, right? It's not just their academic journey, but life as an adult with ADHD and dyslexia. As one who has struggled all her life, Debbie is grateful for a newfound focus and attention achieved through a nutritional and holistic approach, which I think most of us would prefer rather than the medical route. Recently completing an ADHD fellowship with Dr. James Greenblatt, she can now teach us parents how to help our children. So thank you so much, Debbie. What should we do? I mean, a lot of us feel helpless. We don't know even where to start.
Right. Well, thanks, Karen, for having me. I really appreciate you. When we talk about ADHD, even for me, years ago, we have a bias toward it. I think we don't think of it very positively. And the resources that we have to deal with it are usually just medical, or sometimes even worse yet, cognitive behavior therapy, by trying to counsel somebody to behave when their brain is just not working right. And it's almost like torturing a child, really. And I hope I'm not too harsh on any of the parents out there who try. We all need to do some cognitive behavior therapy, but I think there are easier things to do first. And that, for my journey, I struggled my whole life with ADHD and didn't even know it. I just found out. I was just recently diagnosed. And then it just explained to me why I had so many difficulties in school and why I had difficulties sometimes making friends. My parents called me lazy, and I was always bored. I always complained, I'm bored. But that, to me, for all the kids, our parents never realized that there was such a thing as ADHD. They just thought you were hyperactive for the boys, and for the girls, they just call them daydreamers. Usually that's how it works out. But there actually is something not going right in the brain. And that's not a structural thing. It's a nutritional thing. And so I found that working to support the digestion, support the nutrition, it really helps your brain work better. And when it works better, you can accomplish more things. Your outlook on life is a lot better too, because people are not criticizing you for not paying attention, or for not staying still, or for daydreaming too much. I think that takes its toll. And it took its toll on me. So when I did get my diagnosis, I was very traumatized, because I thought, oh my gosh, I do have something that's wrong. But it's really not. It was it's enlightening to know, and then now you know what to do about it. And coincidentally, I was participating in that ADHD fellowship with Dr. Greenblatt to teach us how to work on the diet, to work on the child's health. And when you do that, many good things happen to their brain.
Wow. So I love how you said that there's nothing wrong with us, because I think a lot of parents make the child feel unknowingly, right? Like, oh my gosh, my child can't focus. Or like you said, oh, he just daydreams and he cannot focus on what he's supposed to do. So I didn't realize boredom, because I've been having like 5-year-olds, 6-year-olds. School is boring. And sometimes it is boring. I have no control over the curriculum, but what have you learned in how do you respond to a child who is consistently bored?
Boredom roots from not being stimulated, right? That's why if you don't find something interesting enough, you'll be bored.
Yeah.
And everyone has their different levels of it. Some people are able to occupy themselves and stay interested in something, and others need someone else to help them with that. So it's really important to find something that your child is very interested in. something that's positive that will help them build their academics or their sports or athletic abilities. That tends to be a common outlet for kids who have all this energy and who need to focus on something that they really enjoy. Getting the mind and the body to be in sync, as in athletics, dance, that seems to be helpful. I know of several dancers who can't stay focused for very long on much, but when they're dancing, that's the only thing that matters. So, that's the thing. I think we look at ADHD and we say they just can't focus, right? It's not that they can't focus. They can't focus on certain things.
Right.
They can focus on what they enjoy and what's interesting to them. And that's where the diet comes in. Because when we're interested in something, it triggers chemicals in our brain to help us stay focused, right? And so if nutritionally we are not supporting those chemicals, because we make those chemicals and we need nutrients to make those chemicals, then it's harder and harder for us to stay focused.
So these kids who are addicted to junk food and have a hard time making healthier food choices, how do parents deal with this? I have a 19-year-old, and yes, it's like, so I think some people will always have that childlike, I want a Happy Meal, or I want some fill in the blank junk food. And they're 19 or they're 27 or they're in their 40s. And I don't know if it's just something that we've been trained to enjoy. And so it's almost like an addiction, would you say? Because you just need
It's funny you mentioned that. It's funny you mentioned that, because a lot of these processed foods, especially fast foods, have wheat in them. And wheat has a protein called gliadin. And gliadin, it transforms in our bodies to gliadomorphin. And what does morphin sound like? Morphine. So when we eat those kinds of foods, our body actually transforms them into a morphine-like substance. And that's why we really like them and we enjoy it. And yes, we are addicted. We are. So I've never been the type of telling people to be drastic about their diets unless it's a life or death, right? A very critical situation.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just on a weekly basis, correct one thing.
Yes,
change one thing.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And then eventually most of those unhealthy things are eliminated. Not all of them. I still like to have a French fry here and there, but most of our foods should be healthy, because if you want your body to work and you want your brain to work, you have to give it what it needs. And you're not going to give it what it needs if you give it junk food.
Do you have suggested healthy foods that kids enjoy?
It all depends on the child, right?
True. But what are some popular healthy foods that you would suggest? Because I'm sure parents want to know, right? What do I buy
instead, right?
Yes, instead.
Yeah, I'm right now. I'm trying to think of what's the best way for a parent to transition that way, because I do recommend whole foods, organic whole foods, fruits and vegetables, grass-fed beef if you eat meat, free-range chicken if you eat chicken, and wild-caught fish, but mostly fruits and vegetables. Our kids don't get enough fruits and vegetables in their diet. And
so
if you
how do you
fill them
deal
up
with
some
how do you deal with kids who say, I don't eat vegetables? I know most kids like corn, and
corn is not a vegetable.
Oh, see, a lot of kids are like, I'll take my corn, my broccoli. I know some of them like broccoli. Recently, kale, because if it's a smoothie or if it's grilled. But how do you handle that? Because I know
you made a good point in a smoothie, right? Giving your kids the foods in a form that they enjoy having. And I do a lot of smoothies for the kids.
Mm-hmm.
And I put the kale in the smoothie or the broccoli, and it's not going to taste like one of those other smoothies that you can go and get at a juice bar, but it tastes a lot better for the kids than just eating the kale on its own, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So smoothies are a good thing. Not too much on the granola bars, those kinds of packaged foods. As much as possible, processed foods means processed food, whether it's from a fast food restaurant or it's in a package, it's processed. So that might be difficult for most parents, because I know we're all really busy. We need things that are convenient. And so, I was just shopping with my son. He's going to go off to college, and I have to figure out how he's going to feed himself. And he's not a really good cook. So what's he going to do? So we ended up spending a lot of time in the frozen section with frozen foods, frozen vegetables. And of course, the produce section, but frozen, is a good second. And so for some people, it'd be considered a good first, because when you freeze the food, you lock in some of the nutrients more than fresh vegetables, fruits and vegetables do.
So does your son plan to steam it, or how does, because I know you can steam in the micro too, but if
Oh
they
yeah,
want it
for
to be
steam,
fast,
so
is that what he's
steam,
doing?
or yes, he's gonna he might, he likes soups, broths.
Oh, okay.
So it's easy to get. Yes, it's packaged and it's considered processed, but some chicken broth or beef broth, and just throw in some vegetables. You can throw in the meat too, and just add some spices, and that's dinner or lunch, right? And it's pretty nutritious. So
That's a good idea.
it depends what the kids like, right? If they like soups, that's a good thing. You can even blend it up so that there's no big chunks of vegetables in it, kind of hide it. Yeah. What else can I suggest for the kids? Fruits. They can eat fruits. I think sometimes we talk about having too many carbohydrates, and they say too
Or
much
too much
fruit.
sugar, right? I remember when I was
Yeah.
pregnant, I was eating a lot of fruits, but I guess the fruits that if you eat too much, it's high sugar. Are there certain fruits that you feel personally are more nutritious than others?
The dark colored ones. You always want to look for the really dark colored fruits or vegetables. Those are supposedly the more nutritious of them. But for some parents, just getting any fruit into their child is a task.
True.
So whatever is easy. One of the things I've actually done with my grandson, who's a very picky eater, is you must taste it. One bite. We have the one bite rule. You have to taste it, and then you can tell me if you don't like it. And we, make efforts to prepare it in a way that they like. But once they taste it and they get into the habit of tasting, then their palate opens up, and then they start to like more things.
So what is something that you gave him that he said, no, one bite, no? Are there any particular ones?
Asparagus is one of them. Any of these vegetables are more on the bitter or the sulfur side. The kids' tongues actually they're more sensitive to those flavors. So we really shouldn't be too hard on them if they don't like the taste.
Well, sometimes you grow into it, right? I remember as a young child, I didn't really like asparagus, but I think we did canned. And then when you get older and you bake it with a little garlic salt, or you just even with olive oil and a little bit of garlic salt and pepper, it's a whole different taste.
Right.
And it's still asparagus.
Yeah. Yeah. With kids, it's a challenge because every child's different. Every parent is different, and often I see in the household, one of the parents still wants to eat all that junk food. And so it's even more of a challenge for the parent that wants to change the diet of the child. You have to work as a team. And if you can't, you just have to really consider what's best for you and your family, especially the kids. You have to. It's essential that we take care of our children because they're growing. They need more calories, more nutrients. And if we don't provide them with that, they're not going to develop and realize the potential that they have, the true potential.
True. So can you explain the relation between nutrition and, you said ADHD, nutrition, and even dyslexia or certain learning disorders? I don't think a lot of us realize the connection.
Yeah, for nutrition, well, in regards to ADHD, one of the things they've noticed is there are some neurotransmitter shortages, so to speak, in your brain. And so if those are not firing the way they're supposed to, then the brain is not working properly. And so now you need to provide it with what it needs. It's like, I use this analogy a lot, a car, right? You're going to fill it with gas so it'll run. But if you fill it with water, it's going to die out.
Right.
You need to fill your children with something that's going to help their brain run. And so that's where the gut comes into play, because our neurotransmitters are made mostly in your gut. And if they're not made there, that's mostly the reason why there's a shortage in the brain and the brain is not functioning properly. So, often when I talk to parents who have children with ADHD, their child either doesn't go to the bathroom, they don't poop every day, or it's they have constipation, and they really need help in that area. So they need to eat more fiber, more. I always go back to vegetables, and I'm afraid that there's no easy way to do this, really, but you can make it easy by just incorporating that into your lifestyle bit by bit, and eventually it become a habit. But when it comes to the other learning disorders,
yes,
there's a specific relationship with gut infections and nutrient deficiencies with autism. With dyslexia, depression, and anxiety. Dyslexia, I haven't seen a whole lot. I'm not sure if it's mostly because it might just be it's a little bit different way the brain works. So I'm sorry, I can't answer to dyslexia.
So about anxiety and depression, though, which is a very common, right?
Yes, yes. So with anxiety and depression, you have to start with the gut. You have to make sure that your gut is working properly. I've met numerous young mothers who struggle with depression, and they've been dealing with gut issues their whole adult life. And they said, "Oh, I've gone to the doctor, and they've done all these tests, and nothing's wrong." But they're not measuring the right things.
So how do we can measure? I know you're mentioning that, right?
Yes, yes. So there's a gut function test called the Biome-FX, and it's state of the art. They look at the DNA of all the microbes in your gut, and they've established that there's a certain quantity, a certain variety and proportion or quantity of these gut microbes that you need to have a healthy gut. And so when you test against that, you can see where you might need to improve your diet. It can even tell you that maybe you shouldn't be eating certain things because that doesn't help you. Some people,
Wow.
I remember one test, sulfur foods caused a reaction. And so you're talking about broccoli, cabbage, cauliflower. And those are the things that they're telling you to eat kale because it's healthy. And yet for some people, it's not.
How do we find this test, or how do we get this test done?
You need to find a practitioner that is authorized to facilitate the test. I can do that.
Oh, okay.
And I can make some recommendations too.
How do people find you?
Oh, you can go to my website, optimalenergynow.com. optimalenergynow.com. Mm-hmm.
Are you on social media? Can they find you that way too?
I am. I'm still working on my social media presence, but I'm still there as Debbie Thompson.
Okay. Well, optimalenergynow.com, easy to remember that, and I'll put that when I post your video. But this is really, really informative, and something that I think you and I were talking about it. A lot of us aren't aware of it. I mentioned to you that my daughter went to a gastroenterologist, had all these tests done, blood work done, and when you mentioned that, anxiety and depression, you would need to take that, have your gut tested. Who would have even thought of that? I think now, because of people like you, and we're educating, right, parents and all of us who are even suffering as adults. But before, even I would say 10 years ago, people would just go to the doctor, and you mentioned it, right? You take all these tests and they say there's absolutely nothing that we can find. And then you just continue to struggle.
I think one important note is that there are many different professionals out there, doctors and all kinds of medical practitioners. And just because you go to some of them and they say there's nothing wrong or we can't find anything, it doesn't necessarily mean that nothing's wrong. It just means that they haven't found it.
Right.
And,
right.
And I speak from experience with many family members who have been told that. And
so
when we find
what is the profession, or what is the title of the medical professional that they should seek? Like you are considered, I know you said health and wellness, but who would they see to make an appointment if they can contact you? But what is the title of the professional?
It all depends, because these functional lab tests are facilitated by different kinds of folks, naturopaths, chiropractors, acupuncturists, nutritionists. And so usually medical doctors won't use these tests because it's not covered by insurance.
I was just going to ask you that. It's not covered by insurance, but it has to be done in order to find out like what's wrong with your gut. What are you taking that you shouldn't be introducing to your body? And then what should you eat more of, right? Because like you said, if you're eating a lot of cabbage, broccoli, kale, but your body doesn't process it right, or has the bad side effects, but you're told, hey, you got to eat your kale and your broccoli.
Yes. We're individuals. We are bio-individual.
Yes.
We're just very unique. And so our health solutions will be different or modified, right? It'll be a custom, customized diet and customized lifestyle for you, what's best for you. And we all have to look at it that way. That's why when they say, oh, do this diet, a lot of people have lost weight and then you try it and it doesn't work for you.
Right.
It doesn't mean the diet doesn't work. It means you need to find a different kind of diet.
Wow.
Your body has different needs.
Yeah, it sounds like all of us need to contact you or someone in a naturopath, right? Chiropractor, because we are not going to know what's wrong and what we should stop eating, what we should be eating more. And like you said, my whole focus is parents and children. But if we don't take care of ourselves as parents, right, and then role model and actually educate our kids,
right,
then decades go on and we continue. Like you said, you're not telling us to stop eating the occasional French fry, but you really incorporate just healthier, right, a healthier lifestyle, which I think a lot of us want to, but whenever you see that, you pass by Dunkin' Donuts or you see that dessert at a party.
The baker's dozen.
I know.
I get an extra one.
It's a struggle, but I think what you said, as long as we do it in moderation or just focus on what you said, change, like implement one thing a week or just be right, because then it becomes a healthy habit if we start making those changes.
Absolutely. Yeah. It like everything else that we do in the long term, right? It didn't always start that way, but we made a change and it became a habit, and then it becomes part of our lifestyle.
So we don't go to McDonald's every day or once a week. We just stop.
I think for some of us, it's just going to be being aware that, okay, if I go to McDonald's, it's actually something that I'm aware of, that it's not, it's actually a negative for my body.
Yes.
And maybe I have to do something more positive if I'm going to, consume these things. Maybe we just have to start there. Right?
You're right, because we're on autopilot. We're on autopilot. My daughter just showed, how you have the receipt and if you do the little survey or something, it's like buy one, get one free. And it's like, wait, we have to really realize what we're doing. Are we really getting a bargain when we're putting, I always say, do you want to put poison in your body? And I make it, I think I do it a little too harsh, but it has to be a conscious choice and it has to become a habit. Otherwise, it's almost like an addiction, like you said, which it is, right? That I didn't know about that more.
Right.
Wow.
Yes. And so we do it without thinking, right?
Yes.
We go to those places without really thinking about it. And so really start by giving it some thought. And by all means, don't feel guilty if you're going to do this kind of stuff, because you don't need to add that to the bad food, right? If you really want to have that, enjoy it, and then go get something really healthy for yourself.
That's a good point, because I think a lot of us do that. Oh no. And then you just have that guilt and then you don't really get to enjoy it. But like you said, just right, periodically you can just do the unhealthy thing, but always make a better, healthier choice.
Yes.
basis.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Debbie. I really
Oh,
appreciate
welcome.
your
Thank
time. I
you.
know you're really busy, and I will put your contact information and your website. So it's the optimalenergynow.com.
Yes, yes.
Right?
And if anybody has any questions, they can reach out to me, and I'll be sure to answer them.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Great.
You enjoy the rest of your Wednesday.
Thanks, Kara.
Okay, take care.
You too.
Bye.
Bye-bye.